Right, we are recording live. Let's see. Okay. Welcome everybody to the April 1st, 2024 Bicycle Advisory Committee. My name is Alan Gonzalez. I'm the staff liaison for the committee, and I'll hand it off to Cynthia Palmer, who's the chair.
Thank you, Owen. Welcome everyone to the April meeting of the Bicycle Advisory Committee. And we can all introduce ourselves and answer the following question. Have you ever interacted with the Arlington County Police Department during or in the context of a bike ride? And if so, feel free to share a story or two. And since there are so few of us here, I will tell you two quick stories, and I will try to be as succinct as possible. Years ago, in the middle of the night, I needed to buy Tylenol from the pharmacy for one of my girls. So I got on my bike and I was riding on the back streets, which were dead. There were no cars at that hour. And then a car started driving behind me. And I tried to keep by the side of the road so it could pass, but it wasn't passing. And I turned the corner, and then I turned another corner, and the car just like kept following me. I was being followed, and I started to panic. And I started riding like as fast as I possibly could. I didn't stop for anything. And then, you know where this is leading. Flashing lights, and the cops pulled me over and said I had just proceeded through 3 stop signs. I was dumbfounded, and I didn't have my wits about me. I had been so scared. So I just remember saying, yes, sir, yes, sir. And eventually he let me go. So that's one of my stories. And I have one more. Um, which was a few weeks ago. I locked my bike outside of Trader Joe's and I went in for my shopping. And all of a sudden, another customer raced up to me and said that my bike was being stolen. So I ran outside, and indeed, there was a bike theft underway, but it wasn't my bike, it was an e bike. And lots of people were watching from the store windows. And I was like, I wasn't sure quite what to do. But then I thought to myself, oh man, I'm with the BAC. I have to represent bikers. So I confronted the bike thief and I started telling him how he shouldn't be stealing that bike. And I took lots of pictures, and ultimately he ran away. And in the meantime, people inside the store had called 911, and the cops came and they caught him, and they used my photos to confirm that it was him who was stealing the bike. So it all worked out. So anyway, I have had two main interactions with the Arlington County Police Department, and we can go through the list and hear your stories if you have any to share. We'll start with Collier.
Hey everyone. Yeah, Collier Cook in Ballston. Yeah, the only interaction I've had with the county police was about 5 or 6 years ago. I was biking back from the Arlington County Fair on Quincy, going just north of Wilson, going towards Fairfax, right in front of the if you know where the ABC store that is on Quincy. Um, there was a car, I think it was a car or SUV, and Quincy there has protected bike lanes, but well, they're protected in theory. There's no barrier to keep the cars from parking all the way to the curb, and so there some of the folks going into the ABC store the best parkers. And so they narrowed the bike lane really narrow. And so when I was trying to go through, my shoulder hit the car or SUV, and then someone came out and just started yelling at me because there's a stop sign right there, and I said, why are you yelling at me? You're parking in the bike lane." It all leads to them calling the police. I was willing just to stay just because I didn't think I did anything wrong. And the police came and got my story. They got the folks that had the car, their story. And the officer came to me and said, "You haven't done anything wrong. You can go along." So I don't know what ultimately happened to those the ladies that were visiting the ABC store, but so yeah, I've had nothing but good interactions with the county police.
Good to hear. There was a somewhat happy ending. Dana.
No, all my interactions are with either with Metro Police or with our most favorite police force, the Park Police. And I emerged unscathed, but I did pull the wings off the fly.
All right. Owen.
Hey everyone, my name is Alvin Gonzalez. Yeah, I haven't had any interactions with ACPD yet. I do live in DC, so we do see a lot of Metro police, all over the place, and they are pretty friendly in terms of making sure that, especially for big events, in terms of managing traffic and making sure that folks are safe. But I haven't really had much interaction. I have interacted a lot over the past few weeks with Captain Damon Washington, who's been very instrumental and very open in terms of connecting us with more resources to have a better understanding with the way we're rolling out the speed cameras. So I'm really excited to hear from Lieutenant Colonel Hughes on the call. But yeah, that's it for me.
Great. Thank you. Eric.
I assume that's Eric Goodman.
Eric Goodman. Yes.
All right. I guess so. I'm Eric Goodman, and I'm also on the on the Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I'm the acting chair of that right now, and I live in the Ballston area. And I guess I haven't had a lot of interactions with the police, but I know we did have quite a few interactions with Officer Daniel Murphy in the past. He was pretty animated and actually did a lot to talk about crashes, and also on a few times when we had public bike rides, I think he also was involved. So really enjoyed working with him and look forward to working with the police more in the future.
Excellent. Lieutenant Kernicki.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I'm Ken Kernicki. I'm one of the lieutenants here in the Special Operations Section with Arlington County Police. I was asked by Captain Washington, he's my direct supervisor, to be present for this meeting tonight. I don't think I've met with you guys in the past. If I have, I apologize. Mr. Gonzalez kind of forwarded me a bunch of questions. I wasn't sure if you wanted me to jump into those or how you kind of the format here of how you ran this, or if you had any questions out of the blue that you wanted me to try to answer. But yeah, I was a little bit, until I got his email yesterday, I was a little bit unprepared, not sure what to expect. So I at least have those answers for you, but I'm more than happy to answer whatever out of the blue.
Fantastic.
Let me know how you want to work this.
Yes. So we'll finish going through the introductions, and then we can do a combination of whatever questions you've already received, and maybe a few people will have additional questions. But first we'll go through the list and just find out who else is here, and then we'll call on you in a couple of minutes.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And next we have Kevin O'Brien.
Hey everybody, Kevin O'Brien, Virginia organizer with the Washington Area Bicyclists Association and friend of the BAC. And thankfully, no interactions with actually any of the police forces in the several years that I've been in the area.
Good to hear. And who's next? Andrew.
Good evening. Yep, Andrew Martin, Arlington Heights. Yeah, kind of same somewhat sentiments. No real interactions. Though at one point, I guess my roommate accidentally parked in front of someone's driveway, and so 5:30 in the morning we had a knock on the door where the officer looked up his plate, realized he lived around the corner, and asked him to move rather than giving him a nice ticket or tow. So that was good on him.
Very good. Okay. Mary.
Hello. So I'm Mary Delau. I'm with Bike and Walk Arlington, and I live in Bluemont. So I have had 3 very good interactions with the police when I think of it. So first, both of my kids did safety patrol camp, which was wonderful. And it's like a special unit that does community engagement. I can't remember their name, but they both loved it. And the parents got to go to like a program at the end that was really nice. They just did an excellent job. And then we had been at the public safety block party that they did at Kenmore Middle School. And I don't think they did it last summer, but that was with Bike Arlington. We tabled and we did like a bike rodeo. That was super fun and successful. And then Ashley Savage has helped me with the Walk Friendly Communities application and the Bike Friendly Communities application. She's a public information officer, and she was extremely helpful and responsive. So, and I've never had any encounters that were negative when I was out riding my bike. I did get pulled over on my bike when I was a college student in DC, which still was like stunning to me. And I don't even remember what I was doing, but I was riding somewhere where I wasn't supposed to be. And this like police car pulled up and rolled down the window and told me about it. And I was so shocked. But anyway, nothing in Arlington. So
Great. Thank you, Mary. Randy.
See, my favorite police officer is Heather Herlock. I don't know how many of you know Heather, but Lieutenant Kernicki could tell us if she's still in place. She's a special police officer and a person who used to run the licensing program for bicycles and who has for many years been the person who cleans up derelict bikes where people have chained one to a telephone pole and then gone south or something. She's a real and she's a safety nut. She stops bicycles and yells at them for not wearing helmets. So she's one of my favorites. But most of my interaction with the Arlington County Police Department that I remember well is them escorting us on the early county board rides. They would send along a couple of officers. They would even stop traffic for us. And then recently, the Kittical Mass ride that was tacked on to the end of one of the Arlington rides, they came along on that and did and stopped traffic for that one too. So they're really good people to have along.
Wonderful. All right, Aaron.
All right. Hey, I'm Aaron Schutz. I live in Lyon Park. So 20 something years in Arlington, and I've had great experiences with the police. They don't beat people up. They don't, plant drugs, anything like that, as far as I'm aware. No, all really good things. The only thing that I've gotten stopped for twice, is this being recorded? Is
yes.
Somebody I know has gotten stopped twice. I'm a big fan of the Idaho stop, And when I get to a four-way red light and the lights turned red for the cross traffic and it's about to turn green arrow, I will just shoot straight through because everybody stopped, gets me ahead of the traffic, gets me out of dangerous situations competing with the cars. So I feel a lot safer in doing that in spite of it being illegal. And so twice I've gotten pulled over and had the finger waggle done at me, which obviously I deserve. So I just look a little more carefully for the police before I make my move now. I mean, I don't do such things now. That's when I was young and foolish. Otherwise, good.
Thank you, Aaron. Has anyone else arrived and not had a chance to introduce themselves? I think we've got everyone right. Okay, so Lieutenant Kernicki is first up, and let's see. I know that we submitted a few questions, and I think there's something about traffic cameras in school zones that we were going to start with, but whatever, we're pretty flexible in terms of like the order of things. So maybe whatever like you have prepared is great, and then we can maybe ask you some questions too.
Sure, I was just kind of prepared for this to be a little bit more of like a conversation and
That
me
sounds good.
kind of Q&Aing it. But as far as I'll just get the speed, the photo and speed camera stuff out of the way. I know very little about that project. That's a project that is being housed in the operations division, but I am not on point with that. So I have very little information about it. So I don't want to speak kind of out of turn on that. That'd be something Captain Washington would be best to ask questions to or speak to. He's a lot more knowledgeable on that subject. So just kind of table those questions for either the next meeting, or if you want to shoot him an email, he's very responsive, for those of you that know him. So some of the stuff that I got, I just kind of printed it out here. I have it in front of me. So a lot of the questions are very similar, all revolving around bike lane obstructions. So just kind of kicking it off with some of the numbers that you guys were asking for. 2023, the police department as a whole, so that's police officers, parking aides, and then TMU, which is our traffic management unit. Those are guys that kind of drive like the highway trucks, if you ever see them around the county. A total of 253 tickets were issued in 2023 for just bike lane obstruction, specifically that violation. And then you guys wanted some of the staffing numbers. So our public service aides, which are our parking folks, they're sworn, or I'm sorry, they're not sworn, they're uniformed civilian staff. So we have 10 full-timers right now, with 3 supervisors, and we currently have 5 vacancies. And we are hiring. So if you know anybody that wants to work ACPD jobs, please apply. And then our transportation management unit, like I said, those are the guys you see in the yellow shirts with the cones. They're real big around our special event season. They do a lot of the traffic management stuff for us. And then they also assist the police officers on the patrol capacity as far as traffic goes and accidents and things of that nature. We have 6 of those full time with 1 supervisor. Not all of them are working at the same time. They're on a Monday through Friday schedule with Saturday overtime shifts. So they do have some Saturday enforcement, but that's a little more flexible. And then we cover from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday with that personnel. So as you can see, kind of limited personnel. And then just to kind of put it in perspective, I was trying to get you guys some solid numbers, but it was last minute with crime analysis today. So these are very loose, but just to kind of give you perspective. So just the parking aides alone, or I should say parking aides and TMU, the civilians alone, they averaged in March right around 600 calls for service. So just that's that Monday through Friday time frame. Or I'm sorry, 700 calls, 682 calls. So, you know, that's roughly like 35-ish calls a workday. And that's not even counting the complaints that we get through, you know, ACP SOS, the parking ticket emails, the call-ins for the abandoned ticket hotlines, which we average about 60 of those a month. So these folks, I mean, they get worked. Just so you know, they're out there doing their thing. So just to put that in perspective, since you guys had several questions about that kind of stuff. But that's kind of the most boring thing talked about is the, you know, strictly the numbers. But does anybody have any questions about that stuff? And then I'll just kind of hit on the bike lane stuff. No? Okay. So it looks like, I don't know, maybe there's 5 or 6 questions, but they all focus right around the bike lane specifically and what constitutes a violation of obstructing the bike lane and how that's dealt with by, you know, the police. And I might say the police, but I'm focused more on the public service aides and traffic management unit because that's going to fall more on them. So when you see the violations, obviously you guys asked me to kind of walk this through. So if you see a violation, call an emergency number. They'll dispatch either a PSA or a TMU unit that's in service to that location, and they'll validate it. If the car is in fact obstructing the bike lane, they'll issue a ticket. If it's a safety hazard or it's been there for a little while, they'll even tow it. So if it's happening right now, don't wait. Just call an emergency number. Don't feel like, you know, you're burdening anybody. That's what that number's for. And if somebody's in service, they'll send them. If nobody's in service, the call will pen until somebody clears up, and then they'll send them. All right. If it's something that's not happening right now, but maybe it's in front of your apartment building or your work or something like that, you notice it happens a lot pretty frequently, you can shoot us an email to ACPDSOS or parking tickets. Both of those end at arlingtonva.us, or you can go to the police website or the county website, and there's a tool on there on how to submit a traffic or parking complaint. All of those get filtered to us, the special operations section, and we'll make sure those complaints get checked. See, somebody's got their hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Is there a way to report the first category of like in-process violations in a written way? I mean, so often, you know, I'll be biking somewhere, walking into an appointment, and the bike lane's blocked. So I can't really make a call because I'm going to a thing, but I can easily fill out a form, send a tweet, or, you know, do something in a written form.
Yeah, you can still send any one of those, the emails, the online forms, you can still send those. It's just the reason I suggest the call is because it's immediate, right? Like if it's happening right now and you call, our response is going to be much quicker than an email or an online form submission.
But I mean, there are plenty of immediate ways, right? Like all of these things transmit immediately. It's just a matter of you guys looking at it immediately. So are there any that you guys constantly monitor?
I mean, constantly, like 24 or like second, no. It gets checked throughout the day. It comes in to a spreadsheet, essentially, is how it filters in. And then new complaints get assigned. Generally speaking, we don't get many like in progress complaints on those online forums, social media, that kind of thing. Most people call it on emergency. That's typically the most successful way for us to handle the stuff that's, you know, in progress. You know, that would be my best advice for you.
Right. It's just, I mean, that's because this message has been pushed through for years that the only way to get immediate response is to make a phone call. But there's plenty of times where making a phone call isn't practical. And so can ACPD designate one of the myriad of ways that could be immediate as being a way to get immediate response?
It's something we could look into, but if you're asking me this question for something that happens tomorrow morning, the
Okay.
answer is going to be to call.
Yeah. Well, if you guys could look into it, it's definitely something that just in the year 2024, there's just very few phone calls made, and the opportunity to just make a phone call is actually not that easy. So I think you guys are missing opportunities to make our county safer because we can't report it, because you guys are saying, no, only phone calls can be immediate, when like WhatsApp exists, text exists, tweets exist, like so many formats exist. So it'd be great if you guys could use the technology that's available now.
Sure, thanks for the input. Anybody else got anything on that?
Yeah, I had just a quick follow up on the whole idea of reporting, things in progress. Are you encouraging us to call if there's a Amazon delivery or an Uber Eats or somebody getting carry out blocking? Because I could call from my house and say there's somebody parked illegally in front of the Bonchon a few blocks away. How do I know? Because it's every single day.
I 100% sympathize with this. We get absolutely inundated, especially around like the new apartment buildings and the mixed commercial use buildings that have been going up all over the county. There's very little parking. The loading docks are small. This is something we're working with DES on and traffic engineering. It's a very difficult problem for us to deal with.
Sure, but are you
It's personnel heavy, right? So
yeah, of course. Are
having
you
somebody
encouraging us to call on that, or are we
if you think
just
it's if you think it's unsafe, call.
Okay.
Yeah.
In a related thing, by the Central Library, there's a bus stop that private schools use in the morning for picking up kids, and I've had a couple of times where morning after morning after morning there's been a bus parked there, and so I did the report a problem something and said, oh, that doesn't count for, because that's an immediate thing and they're gone by the time somebody looks at it. What is the recommended way for something that maybe is a little more solvable than an Uber Eats pickup, like something, a recurring event like this? What's your recommended approach?
Yeah, I mean, so the filter, the reporter problem works good.
But I was told that that's the wrong mechanism by report a problem.
Yeah, so by wrong mechanism, we're kind of working through some issues with how that information is being funneled, so to speak. There's some language on that reporter problem that is very similar, and some of that's going to traffic engineering, and some of it's coming to us, depending on which incident you select. That's something that's being worked on right now. I was actually in a meeting last week on that. But hopefully that'll be fixed here in the very near future. But still, the reporter problem or the new function on the website to us or the emails will work for those types of instances, because generally when that comes in, we'll assign that out to one of these PSAs. So they'll go out there and work this for a week and a half, something like that. And that's where we kind of do the education enforcement program to try to curb that issue. We'll also look at that with TE&O to see if there's an engineering, solution to it, whether it's new signage, bollards, which you see go up all over the county, that type of thing to kind of help with that. Depending on, I'm not familiar with that bus stop off the top of my head. I don't know if that's a Metro bus stop or if it's an ART bus stop, but I wrote it down to check into it and I can follow up.
Yeah, it's right at the main entrance.
Is
right
it a
main
Metro?
entrance.
Is it a Metro bus stop?
No. Well, it might be, but it's right out front of the main entrance of the Central Library.
Okay. I'll follow up on it. If it's a Metro bus stop, that also adds a hurdle too, just because it's another jurisdiction. But we can communicate with them as well to help us out.
Yeah, they haven't. It's never been a public bus
that's
been a problem. I see.
Yeah,
school
I don't
buses.
think it's Metro. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got it there to follow up.
Thank you. Just because we're talking about that block at Quincy, how tolerant should I be of a police officer parked in the bike lane while he's issuing a ticket to somebody who maybe also is parked in the bike lane or pulled over and pulled into the bike lane because they were doing something wrong and got pulled over? Is that just in all honesty, is that considered the right place for that to happen?
You tell me.
I'd rather
you know,
not, right? I don't want
I
anything
don't-
that pushes me into traffic, but I
Yeah.
get it, right?
So I'm not trying to be short, but I've been here since 5:30 this morning, so it's been a little bit of a long day for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're the police department in general. You know, if we're conducting traffic enforcement, we pull somebody over and we're in the bike lane for 10 minutes to issue somebody a ticket. And there's nowhere else for us to go. I don't know what the expectation there would be, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to solve or mitigate the traffic issue, whether that's blocking the bike lane or whatever traffic infraction the vehicle caused. It's temporary. You know, we're not parked there for 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. So I know it's inconvenient for the 10 minutes that it takes to write the ticket, but at the end of the day, do you want the traffic enforcement or not, kind of thing. So
Yeah, no, and I don't like it, but I don't see a better solution myself. So I just wanted to, while we're talking about it, because if that happens on Quincy a lot too, or it has happened. So
no, I understand.
Thank
I mean, I've been in similar spots where it's just you can't control where somebody stops, right? You turn the lights on and you stop where you stop. And initially, you know, you kind of deal with it, and we can move them. If there's somewhere safe to move, we move. We typically do that. But if there's nowhere else to go, we're kind of stuck there, and we just hope the lights keep us from getting hit and the other car from getting hit and any other issues happening.
Yeah. All
All
right.
right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Anybody else got anything for me?
I have an unrelated question.
Sure.
Just that we've been doing a lot of work on the plans for Route 1 and the VDOT's proposal to bring the 18th Street intersection down to grade. And in our last meeting, just a couple weeks ago, they were talking about how they might have perches for law enforcement to make sure that the intersection, that there are not infractions and speeding and people going through the red light and all that. At the same time, so they're talking about like this increased police role, and at the same time, we read in the newspaper that you all are really strapped, and I mean, you're just working like you said. You started at 5:30 in the morning. You have way too much work and not enough manpower, people power to do the job. And so I'm just wondering, like, is this really realistic that you will take on this whole new role to be there at, in these perches um at 18th Street or along Route 1? It just seems like that's asking too much of ACPD unless they pay you or unless like Virginia State Police take over some of the role, or I don't know. How do you see that whole situation?
I mean, yeah, there's a lot going on there. That's the first I've heard of the purchase. I'm not sure what they're referring to, whether that's like a spot they want a police officer to stay, or if that's, they're going to try to utilize photo red light. I don't think the code is would allow photo speed in that corridor, but I'm not sure. I haven't been brought up to that project, the Route 1 project, and it's a VDOT road. So if they want to, whatever type of enforcement, devices they want to set up on there, they're more than welcome to. It's there right away. But yeah, so I don't have a great answer for you. I mean, we are short, but we do what we can. I think we're 70 plus officers short, so like 20% vacancy rate. So, I mean, we're doing what we can with what we got, and we hope that this isn't, the forever. So we're working hard trying to get that back up so we can deliver the services the community wants and deserves. So, just be patient. Unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for when the Route 1 stuff. I'm just not really sure what VDOT is referring to.
Yeah, we had not heard about this until a couple of weeks ago, and it seemed like these perches were for you all. And I was thinking, man, but how can you be everywhere at once? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
thank you.
the only thing I can think of right now on Route 1 is the speed or the photo red light at 23rd and Richmond Highway. That's the only thing I can think of right now. That's currently there, and I have not heard of any new additions or changes or anything like that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Dana, did you have any follow-up questions, or anybody else?
I was
Yeah,
just
I
going to point
guess,
out when,
yeah, if I could ask one. So what hours, when I've called for parking enforcement, there's been a lot of back and forth about what constitutes the offense. For a car to be determined to have parked in a bike lane, do any of the street signs that say no parking, do those need to be there? Do there need to be, if there's a parking meter nearby, does that obviate the offense? What's the, what constitutes the offense?
That's a good question. For us, the way we look at that is it has to be obstructing the bike lane. So whether the whole car's in it, part of the car is in it, if you got a big box truck and like the mirrors are extending out into it where you can't get, by it safely, anything that's obstructing it. We write that violation off the generic 14.22 code for obstruction. The problem with the newer code, the 14.265, is it's defined in that code. Bicycle lane is defined in that code as having a physical separation. Now, does physical separation mean painted line on the road? That's an argument for court, really. But all the examples the county gives in that code are legit physical barriers, plastic bollards, curbs, planters, things like that. So when I think of like bollards, I think of like when you're driving down 66 down the hot lanes or 495 in the hot lanes, right? Like a clear defining separation between the bike lane and the parking spaces, or the bike lane and the traffic lanes, something like that. But anytime something's obstructing it, it happens, I mean, you see it where a car will pull the whole way into the bike lane, right, and block the bike lane, or a big truck's parked there and it's blocking half the bike lane, this mirror's sticking out. If it's obstructing it, give us a call. Okay,
because I've had the police refuse to enforce when it's just paint.
Yeah, like I said, it's gray. If you read the county code, it's gray. It's not black and white. That's something.
How can we help?
What's that?
How can we help?
County board. So it needs a code change, a clarification in the code, just to make that black and white.
The staff doesn't doesn't request statutory relief by proposing amendments. Wouldn't that be a more logical approach?
The staff, as in county staff?
Yeah, like the police department, the county attorney. The county. Wouldn't that be a more logical way to do it?
That's what I meant by county board. The county staff, correct. I don't know if I necessarily said the police department. We'll enforce whatever codes or laws are enacted, but we're not necessarily writing those.
I'm just looking at the code here, and it says the definition is protected bike lane that you were referring to with the physical separation, but it does not specify a definition for bike lane, but it does refer to bike lanes in other places.
Correct. That's why we do that. Just the general obstruction code. It's easier to articulate. So when you have something like this, when an officer is using discretion, it's easier to articulate the obstruction. We have clearly take a picture of a vehicle blocking the bike lane, versus, trying to make a case with bollards or paint or planters or curbs or things like that.
Okay, and one more question from me. To the photo that I sent you a photo that had a truck that was creeping into the door zone, and that was in an area that had metered parking, so it was legitimately metered. Is that enforceable?
I would say no in that case. If it's not in the bike lane, obstructing the bike lane, then I would say no. I would not write that ticket.
But the code says that they have to stay in their box.
Yeah, but that's when we get back into like the parking lane thing. That's what I'm saying. It's gray. It's not black and white states. You cross this line but not that line, then it's a violation. I think the meter stuff is more for the actual spots. Like if you're taking up 2 spots or 3 spots, especially now in the areas where they have the designated spots with the performance parking stuff. But in that instance, that picture that you just had up on the screen, I would say no.
Okay.
Thank you. We have 2 more questions
Thank
if you have time.
Sure.
First Jillian and then Eric Goodman.
Yeah, and sorry my video isn't working. Three quick things. One is, it sounds like you guys, I think what Dana was getting at, and I think what we would all appreciate, is if there's a specific problem in the code, if you could let us know what it is that the specific problem is. Because whether it's Arlington County ordinances or Virginia code, I look at the Virginia code and it defines bicycle lane, and then it has provisions about when bicycle lanes are able to be used. Like the vehicles shall not cross a solid line designating a bicycle lane. Like it seems kind of clear to me, but happy to, I think for us, it would be really helpful if you could be very specific. And we're happy to help you guys get the clear authority there, because nobody wants to be wasting your time, writing tickets that get overturned. Number 2, I lead the bike bus to Escuela Key, the BC booth, every Friday morning. I've invited you guys a couple of times, and we would love to have you guys come just so you can see what this is about, like our vulnerable kids biking to school, why we're even talking about protecting these people. Would love you guys to come. And then lastly, a lot of the things you said seem like they would be solved if we had more protected bike lanes, like pulling a car over or stopping your cars. Of course, you want to pull over to the curb. That's the natural place to pull your car over. But when that puts you in the bike lane or puts the driver in the bike lane and you have to be behind the driver, obviously you're obstructing a bike lane and you're creating a situation that can be dangerous. So so if there's a physical separation, you pull all the way to the right to that physical separation, we still have, people who are biking still have a safe place to ride that's separate from the people driving. Sounds like you guys should be allies in our request to make things safer. It sounds like it would be make things easier on you guys, and we would love to hear your voice lent to those discussions when we're talking about, for example, on Quincy, making things actually have solid barriers between the moving cars and the people on bikes. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, definitely. I think the police department, without a doubt, would be a proponent of those protected bike lanes. Keeps cars out of the lanes. It keeps calls for service rush down with cars obstructing the lane, and then also protects you guys. So, that's a no-brainer for us, in my mind, anyway. And then obviously, I have not heard of I haven't received the invite whether that's made to me or not, or any of my colleagues. I'm from you, but my email is the letter K and then my last name at arlingtonva.us. Just shoot me an email and we'll see if we can get to you the next time you got one.
Thanks. We ride every Friday that there's school. So
Okay.
Thanks.
What time?
The main route meets in Lion Park at 8:15. I'll send you all the details.
Okay.
But you can also if you just Google Escuela Key BC booth, you'll
Okay.
find all the information.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you. And one more, Eric Goodman. Eric,
I
are
don't know
you
if you're,
speaking?
I don't
We
know if you're
can't
muted.
hear you.
Any improvement?
Got it.
Okay, good. Sorry. Anyway, thank you very much. Really appreciate you being here. And since we're talking about bike lanes, I just wanted to ask, mainly what we've sort of looked at are people parking in bike lanes and loading in bike lanes. But do you treat like Uber and Lyft sort of drop-offs differently, which tend to be pretty short, but they still are incursions, and just wondering how those are treated?
Yeah, I mean, I sympathize with you on that stuff. I mean, they're just as difficult as loading the trucks that load, like the FedEx and Amazon and the Uber and Uber Eats and stuff. I mean, like I said earlier, it's been a huge challenge for us. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it's a giant challenge. They're fast, quick turnaround, and they happen everywhere. You know, let alone blocking a lane, a traffic lane, and a bike lane. You know, we typically get those or address those as we're going like call to call or just on general patrol as you see them. The problem is they just happen so fast. Even when you call or if you send us the online forms or anything like that, I mean, by the time that even a call, say right now, is the most efficient thing for us. Even if you were to call, the call taker calls it, enters the call, and the dispatcher dispatches it, and somebody's in service and they're close by, it's still 3 or 4 minutes. And that car, that Uber driver is definitely gone. Most of the time, the FedEx, the UPS, the Amazon driver, they're gone. So I sympathize with you. It's something we're working on, looking at some different alternative solutions for that. But it's definitely a challenge. Just bear with us. We're trying our best at that.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Oh, I don't know. Do you have more time? I see 2 more questions.
Give me 2 more, and then I'm
Okay,
I'll tap
Randy.
out.
Okay, I'd just like to add another spot for you to look at. It's not really it's an impossible policing problem. I think it has to be addressed by engineering somehow. And that is when I'm riding along Quincy Street from Fairfax Drive to Glebe. When I get to Wilson and I cross Wilson, the first 25 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards of that lane are always obstructed. Just always. I mean, always forced out into traffic. And that's not a good place to be forced out into traffic because people come around the corner from Wilson and people are behind you on Quincy. And but that spot, every time I go by there, it seems like there's a vehicle there. So if somebody could look at it, I don't think it's a policing problem. I think it's going to have to be approached by engineering.
Yeah, that's traffic and engineering, but it doesn't help or it doesn't hurt for me to send an email as well. But I would encourage you to do the report a problem tool with that information. If you got pictures too, that really helps with that kind of stuff. They do. I can say they would probably be better having their own representative saying, but I can attest to them that they do check on almost all of those complaints. Like every complaint that we referred people to putting in, we've gotten emails back from them about those complaints. So sometimes they take a little while, but they do get to them. So I put that complaint in the report a problem tool to traffic engineering. And I will also send an email about that location so we can kind of hit it from both angles.
Thank you so much. And Kevin O'Brien.
Yeah, not a question necessarily. More of a comment and something Randy just said about an impossible problem. And I shared the link in here, and I agree. Like, report a problem tool. If it's something that we know that the report a problem tool isn't like accepting, I encourage folks to utilize the new issue reporting tool that WABA has put out a couple weeks ago. It's certainly gotten a lot of buzz, and I can tell you that we may not be targeting exactly the right people, but it's certainly, I think the volume has really increased, and we've already gotten calls from different jurisdictions wondering, like, what are we supposed to be doing with this stuff? And that's not necessarily for us to answer, right? But I think it has been a useful way to just raise the visibility of some of these issues that aren't necessarily a policing issue. Blocking bike lanes are going to eventually require an engineering solution, but I think just making it clear that this is something that can't be ignored forever. So again, just to the really pernicious problems, I think I really appreciate police department, the number and all of that, but I think we should also be thinking about other ways to raise this, just the tenor of bring to folks' attention, and some of these tools, WABAs and the issue reporting tracker for the county, I think are good places to start.
I appreciate it, Kevin. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with some of that, right? Like Arlington, you think of like small town, suburby, just outside of DC County, right? Lots of single family homes and tight little narrow streets with, a great community. But as Arlington modernizes and grows and gets bigger and kind of urbanizes, these are some of the issues that we're dealing with. And the loading docks, the bike lane obstructions, the delivery driver, that kind of stuff, the challenges that comes with it. It's all good. It's all good growth stuff, but it's just new challenges, different types of challenges that the normal type of education enforcement doesn't necessarily address as efficiently. But those, that's why we're looking at alternative solutions. But thank you.
Thank you so much. I hope you get some sleep. I hope you get home safe and your day is over. I hope this is the last thing in it.
Yes, this is at home to hopefully see the kids before they go to bed.
Oh, okay. Thank you so very much. We really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, guys. You have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We went over a little bit, but I am sure we will make up for that. And Elwin is up.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Cynthia. All right. I'm going to talk to you guys right now about our performance. Sorry, Kevin, did you have a question before we start?
Nope, the hand was up from earlier. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I just want to give you guys an update as to performance metrics that are in the bike element of the Master Transportation Plan, the MTP. As folks are aware, these recommendations and targets have been in place since the bike element was adopted in 2019. So they're tracking our progress year over year since then up to this point. Let's see, I have some notes. So yeah, just give a heads up. Brian Shelton on our team was the one who put this together. So you might have some more background information that I might be able to get back to you with if you have any follow-up questions. But I'm going to walk through these targets to see where we are compared to how the goals were illustrated back in 2019. And then if you have any questions, like I can open it up to the floor afterwards. But hopefully trying to get through these slides to catch up some time. All right, so overall, there's 11 progress targets. These were put in place to basically meet the 6 goals that are listed in the bike element, which, these were put together by a lot of folks on this call. So we've come a long way in terms of identifying our priorities as a county government, as a community. And these are intended to basically gauge progress to achieve the 6 goals that are in the bike element to, 1, provide a high quality transportation service network, to move more people without more traffic, to promote safety, to establish equity, to manage effectively and efficiently, and to advance environmental sustainability. So as you can see, some of these goals have been achieved, but a lot of these targets are moving targets. Some years we meet them, some years we'll fall behind, and as you can see, it's kind of up and down over the past few years, which I'll go into more detail for each target. So for progress target number 1, this is intended to basically reduce bicycle crashes per 10,000 residents by at least 55 per year. And this data is collected by traffic engineering and Vision Zero teams with data collected from ACPD and VDOT. So as you can see, we started at 1.72 per 10,000 residents, and it did go up in 2019. But as you can see, it's been fluctuating year over year, and we still haven't gotten the data fully from this year. I believe crash data will be released later this April for more up-to-date statistics. Let's see. Just from some background information, this reflects 10-month period data from January through November. We had 50 bike crashes from January through November 30th for last year. Most of these crashes have happened during the day from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. During the peak hour. Very few crashes or result from people driving vehicles that were distracted, tired, or intoxicated. And 2/3 of these crashes occurred within or adjacent to an intersection. So as you can see, it's been going up since 2020. And you'll find that the common theme over the course of this rollout is a lot of things have been changing as a result of the pandemic, which is changing behaviors. And you'll see that a lot of this data is missing in some places because not just because of the pandemic, but because of staff turnovers in some of our departments, and a lot of these are estimates. So for this next target, which is
Ellen, just to clarify, so those crashes, those were all instances when a motor vehicle crashed, a car driver crashed into a bicycle. Is that correct?
yeah, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's also not the target. It's 5% per year. Looks like there's a typo, like maybe someone didn't hit shift. But it's been carried over in your, I think it was on the slide too.
Yeah, that's
I'm a
probably
little
right.
worried by this. Okay. I'm a little worried that you guys aren't. It's like thinking hard about what the target is if a typo gets carried over.
Yeah, I could look at the bike element to double check.
Right now, it's 5%. Also, 55 doesn't make any sense. Like we started at 1.72. Why would we say reduce it by 55 a year?
Yeah, and I apologize. I didn't prepare this presentation, so I could double check real quick. That's an important question.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you. I was pretty surprised that the first slide didn't have numbers either. The point of this metrics point of including metrics, which we worked really hard on when we wrote this, was to have metrics updated every year. Like this isn't, it's not a grading system. It's like to actually report what the data is, which I appreciate you have on this slide, but and hopefully you will for everything, but why isn't it reported in the overview?
Yeah, I just looked at the bike comment. You're right. This should say 5% per year.
Yeah, like why isn't that a table of numbers?
Yeah, I believe when Brian was when we were putting this together, the idea was to get this consolidated on one sheet, trying to reduce as much text as possible because there's a lot of things that need to be mentioned. So that's why we're going slide by slide to go through each target individually. Okay, let's see. Yeah, with progress target 2, the goal was to provide bicycle safety education to at least 75% of APS K through 12 students by 2025, and to hit 100% by 2030. And as you can see, started out in 19%, but it has fluctuated over the years, with the most recent data being 3%. And some background information, this is collected by APS through their health and PE teachers. Most of the data comes from APS third grade elementary school health and PE bike safety units, which started in 2016. This bicycle safety education program has been modified since it began in 2016. Right now it's offered to 11 elementary schools throughout the year out of the 25 that are in the county. The program is rotated to be offered at all schools at least once every 3 years. So a lot of this data was compiled from Kevin Treacle at APS, who was on a few meetings in the past, over the past year. So a lot of this data is a result of finding opportunities to link students with the education program. They're trying their best to basically get as many students as participating as possible. But it obviously depends on staff capacity and how many teachers are available to gauge this.
May I ask a quick question about the APS one? This
Yeah,
is
sure.
Mary. So when it said NA in 2022, did you say that means like they didn't do it that year? Like I could see 2020 because that was the pandemic. Or what does that mean, NA?
Yeah,
There was no Safe Routes to Schools coordinator, and they didn't keep any data on it. It did exist that year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There didn't keep any data on it.
Ah.
They also I take serious issue with the characterization that it's an in-school staff capacity issue. The school staff have been clamoring for this, at least at some schools, and they feel completely unsupported by SciFac, by the central administration.
And if it's a unit that's being taught in third grade gym, there is a gym teacher that does those things. So it's not a staffing thing. At Yorktown High School, there's a unit on swimming. You better believe every kid goes through the swimming unit because it costs Arlington money to have a pool. And so by golly, we're going to use it. They also all go through the dodgeball unit. So whatever. Yeah, it's not a staffing thing. It might be a reporting issue. It might be a treacle issue. It might be something else. I have no idea.
Okay, so progress target number 3 is basically tracking the number of adult participants in bike education.
Can I just ask a question back at the school one for a second? So if you said 11 out of 25, so you're saying that even in those 11, that only a small percentage actually got the training. Is that what we're saying? Because we have such low numbers there. It just, I would think it would be closer to 50%.
No, but it's only third graders.
Understood,
third graders
but
are
we're
just-
not talking about all of our, we're talking about all third graders in Arlington County to get those numbers like 75% and 100%, right? So that
No.
means that in that school, you may have 5 third grade classes or whatever, only maybe 1 of 5 of those third grade classes receive this training or something like that?
No, well, your first premise was wrong. It's supposed to be 75% of all students. And so APS isn't even trying for that. If they hit every single third grader and the grades are distributed equally, then that's like 7 to 8% of the population.
That's interesting, but you
then
would
that
think
would
every
accumulate.
year it would accumulate. Exactly.
So the 2021 numbers should add to the 2023 numbers.
No, because you don't get it in a year if you had it in third grade.
But if you had it in third grade, haven't you had it? So fifth graders will have had it.
I don't think that's what that is. I mean,
driver's ed
it
isn't
wasn't
taught
well
in third
defined.
grade.
But wouldn't that be predicated on
No.
all the third grade students staying with the Arlington County and not getting any new fourth grade students from some
Yeah, but
other
that
county?
12% number shouldn't drop down to 3%.
Well, I mean, first of all, we just need to talk about what are we even talking about? 12% is what over what? 3% is what over what? Is it the percentage that receives the education within the given year, or the percentage that have ever received the education? Right? It's not defined in the bike element. This is feedback we gave them when we were doing it, and it was not responded to. But I would be shocked if these numbers are being calculated consistently.
She's pretty happy about it.
Yeah, it does look
We
like
can keep going. We don't need to stop. It's just these numbers aren't useful because they're not calculated consistently. So you can't really say this trend is anything.
We're not quite at 100% yet.
Yeah, similarly, this next progress target number 3 is focused on increasing the number of adult participants in bike education and encouragement events, such as Bike to Work Day, by at least 5% each year. So this one, obviously there's something that happened between 2019 and 2020 that has affected, how these events are held and the amount of outreach it's intended to capture. So this is going off the baseline that was established when the bike element was adopted of 6,770 participants. And we are back to 5,470. So yeah, it appears that the effects of COVID are still having an effect on the number of people participating in adult bike education and encouragement events. I'd be happy to open this up to Mary if she has any insights. But yeah, work from home guidelines definitely are impacting the number of people biking to work overall. If we're interested in biking to work.
I mean, with Bike to Work Day, I think, yes, fewer people are biking and it's still always on a Friday. So that's the key. It's early Friday morning, and I don't think that's the day people go into the office as much. And with the increase in event participation, that's really a calculation we've made to do bigger events like the fair at the expense of things like group rides, because we're measured with like number of people touched. So we really did have like big numbers at the fair because it was a beautiful weekend and we had so much going on. So we put all our efforts into these big events like that, and that helped our reporting a lot. So that's how that came about.
So again, like you're not presenting in the table what the target is. The target was increase it by 5% every year, and you're presenting the increase over the baseline year. They're just different things. And I mean, first of all, it's hard to figure out what you're even presenting. I mean, the last slide, APS is giving you data, but it's not clear what they're giving you. On this one, you guys have all the data. Well, you're saying, you know, it's this, but then you're presenting a different thing. But I actually think that the goal was that increase year over year. So when you had a big decrease like 2020, you reset where you increased from.
And move on to the next performance target. Target number 4 was intended to complete 75% of the planned low traffic stress bicycle network by the year 2025, and then complete the network by 90% by the year 2030. So this data was collected with our team in transportation planning, capital projects, with DPR, traffic engineering, and the GIS department. Basically, it's a group effort to get all this data together in one place. But keep in mind that this target does not include sharrows. You know, they're obviously not low traffic stress bikeways. It also excludes standard bike lanes. So this is basically collecting data for, you know, off-street trails, buffered bike lanes, and physically protected bike lanes.
Why does it include buffered bike lanes?
Yeah, that's part of how we define low stress network bike lanes.
But that's not true. Low stress is defined according to the NACTO guide, which depends on the street. So buffered bike lanes can, in some cases, be a low stress facility, but in many cases in Arlington, they would not be a low stress facility. So take Quincy, for example. Is Quincy marked as low?
Not sure off the top of my head. If it's a buffered bike lane, that it would be considered one.
Because it's the volume on Quincy is higher than what NACTO recommends. And Quincy has, you know, in block, it is not continuously buffered or protected. We've had conversation before and have never gotten an answer for it. We thought when we were writing the bike element that the low stress now be what's indicated in the appendix, where we listed out a whole bunch of projects and said low stress. It would be those projects that are supposed to be low stress or be a trail. And you know, that together creates a network, and where are we in actually implementing that network? But like, for example, Quincy is not today based on what's called for in the bike element. would be really helpful maybe to have a map or to have, you know, something to answer those sorts of questions.
Jillian, can I ask you a question? Is the 53%
Yeah, of course.
baseline what we, I guess we're saying 53%. How did that get arrived on, and was that sort of agreed upon when we decided to put that into the bicycle element?
In the bicycle element when adopted, it had not been measured. I believe it wasn't measured until a few years ago when I think we even had to write the county manager to say, like, you're really not measuring this stuff. And the board said you have to measure it. And then Leah did some stuff. And we asked exactly these questions when Leah did the work. We never got answers. I mean, you know, it would be helpful. It also would be helpful to know, like, so between 2019 and 2023, what has been completed? What does the county consider it has been completed?
Yeah, going off of this is basically saying that 59% of the planned off-street network, off-street trails, buffered bike lanes, and protected bike lanes have been built.
I know, but what is that? Like, what are they counting? Like, are they counting Wilson of, what is it, George Mason? Are they counting, you know what I mean? Like, what, so 6% of the network has been completed in those 4 years. What project are you talking about?
Yeah.
It would be helpful to know what counts there.
Yeah, I'm sure this is going off of mileage, but I'm not sure specifically which routes or which bike lanes. Okay, the next progress target is basically diving deeper into what we mean by low traffic stress bicycle routes. But this one has more focused on equity targets. So this one is basically provide a low traffic stress bicycle route within a quarter mile of at least 80% of all householders by the year 2025, and by 2030 to meet 95%. So this information is collected for basically calculating the percentage of households within a quarter mile of a bike facility. Our GIS folks basically worked hand in hand with the county demographers to make sure this data was updated, and then ran an analysis using a buffer zone around each of these households within a quarter mile of a low stress facility. So basically the idea is that these bike lanes are basically being captured within this quarter mile buffer of each property that they deemed you know, as part of the householders that the county demographers define.
So why did when this was adopted, it was 65% was the baseline. Why did you guys revise it upward?
Not sure.
Okay.
Is that how it's defined in the element?
Yep.
Hey, Alwyn, can we get this specific map? You know, if they've done the GIS work, could you have them print it out and share it?
Yeah, for sure. I can get that to you guys.
Thank you.
And is low stress facility defined the same way as in the last slide?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so if there's like one block of protected bike lane, but it doesn't attach to anything else, that's considered a low stress bicycle route?
For this analysis, I believe, yes.
Okay.
Okay. So for this next one, it's basically it's going back to the conversation we were having before in terms of the pandemic changing commuting patterns. The target is seeking to achieve an 8% bicycle commute share by the year 2025 and to achieve 12% by 2030. And this is going off of ACS data. So the reason why it's shown not available for 2023 is because this data is going to be released later this year in September. But we're able to track how we've been going since 2018. Progress target number 7 is basically calling for achieving at least 10% of K through 12 students bicycling to school by the year 2025 and reaching 15% by the year 2030. So obviously the pandemic impacted the way we collected data in 2020, but data was not collected in 2021 or 2022 either.
How was data collected last year?
Let's see. This data is based from APS, where they basically have annual student travel tally counts. The tally counts are an average over the course of 3 days. Oh, they did.
Yeah, they stopped doing it when Lauren Hassel left, which is like, what? How did they get 2023 data? Don't get me wrong, I love this data point. It's a good data point, but I just don't think it's real.
Looks like it began again in 2023 during the fall. So this is a partial count for 2023.
Interesting. Okay, I mean, they didn't count our kids, but fascinating.
And for the next one, target 8, it's basically calling for the increasing numbers of bicyclists counted on specific trails and street facilities by an average of 2% each year. So out of all the counters for this analysis, we picked the Custis Trail since it was the one that had the most reliability in terms of data collection, since a lot of these counters sometimes move locations if they're movable. And this is the one that has the most reliable data counters over time. So I could definitely get you the data for other counter locations if you guys would like, but this is just basically just summarizing data that's collected for the Custis Trail location.
But this wasn't supposed to be one location within the county. It was supposed to be distributed throughout the county, and it was supposed to be year over year. I mean, and this is supposed to be about traveling. Sorry, I think I disappeared for a second. But that location is particularly ill-suited for counting people biking within Arlington, because tons of people are biking through Arlington at that location.
If I can jump in, this is Steve. We have 20 some counters. I mean, I've been told in the past that we collect some of the best data of any place in the country, and we're only counting at one place. And I realize that not every counter works all the time, but I think there's probably a statistician who works in the county who can take the data we have and figure out where, to compare apples to apples and have data that is not counting here and there and get a much more broad-based perspective, like Jillian just suggested, than just a pinpoint. And I mean, the big reason, of course, that the counter is down is that people aren't commuting to and from work every day anymore. And that's not going to come back. So that, I don't think that's very indicative of other places where bicycling may be going up, or maybe not, we don't know. But I think that, I mean, we have a lot of counters, and they're collecting tons and tons of data. I know this, and I mean, let's use it.
And then I could wrap up the next few slides faster because we're getting close to time, 8:30. For this next slide, probably start number 9 is basically reconstructing and repaving at least 4% of the most used trails each year. Looks like we started slow, but then since 2021, we've been hitting these targets. But keep in mind that, even though we have 52 miles of trails in Arlington, only about 35 are maintained by the county itself. So that's why we decided to parse this out, because the bike element recommendation doesn't really specify, repaving of, county maintained trails versus ones that we do maintain. But, including both here for transparency. And this next one is basically setting a target for providing covered bicycle spaces at 100% of all transit stations and schools by the year 2030. And as you can see, it's slowly being increasing, but there are some caveats to this because the bike element isn't clear what they mean by transit stations. So this is including the 11 metro stations and the 1 VRE station, as well as the 4 bus transit stations. And out of the 39 APS facilities, only 6 of them have covered bike racks currently. Then for this last slide, target 11 is basically calling for the expansion and access of bike share, with the number of unique users increasing 5% annually. So this data is collected by Bike Arlington. So this is basically reflecting data we're calling for the capital bike share in terms of bike share, but we also are showcasing how scooters are also being used as county. So basically tracking both capital bike shares, trips, and unique users, and the micromobility, which are usually scooters.
So a quick thing on the last one, on number 9, I think we, in drafting the bike element, we're talking about the county, but it's great to present both. Just make sure you're changing both the numerator and the denominator when you're presenting both. So if, for example, Nova Park repaves part of the WNOD, that would show up when you talk about all trails in the county, but not Arlington trails in the county. The number 10 transit stations is defined. I thought it was defined in the MTP, but yes, we were talking about the all the rail stations, so Metro or VRE rail, and then all the bus transfer stations and schools. And
yeah, it's also.
I think you said okay.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that this also doesn't specify what we mean by covered. Like, it doesn't mean like, hard shell covered, doesn't mean sun sails, like solar sails. Like, this doesn't specify in the bike element. So next time we do this, we definitely need more specificity in terms of identifying not just transit stations, but also what we mean by, is it by an individual parking space? Is it for like a whole set of bike racks? What does that mean actually? Yeah,
So
sometimes
no, it's fine. And but the last one again, like that was meant to be increases year over year versus over a baseline. Sometimes with things like this, what you have is a higher level, like official report or something adopted at the county board level, and then an implementation document. And the implementation document makes, it answers all of these questions. Like what is it exactly that we're counting, and how are we counting it? And then what is it? What's the data that corresponds to it? And that's public, and so we can all know what it is that is going on. So I don't think the county board thought one way or the other about whether covered only means hard shell or sun sail. I don't think we even thought about the difference when it came, you know, in the working group that wrote the bike element. If you ask me, I don't care as long as it's keeping rain off my bike. I'm happy. But more importantly is the quality of the data over time. And when you don't have the kind of implementing document that makes clear what data you're collecting, then you have these problems. And you know, the most egregious problems are on the APS side. But I think there's problems on the Arlington side too, especially when the data differs from what's in the, like just the baseline data has changed pretty dramatically from what's in the adopted bike element.
Well, excellent feedback. I'm happy I presented this to you guys. Definitely want to hear more as time goes on. And just to, I guess, to summarize, like this is where we are in terms of, you know, how we're meeting these targets. Still got a lot of work to do.
But it's not, I mean, some of these are in progress. Some of these are getting worse. Right? Like in progress is not what I would say if you're actually backsliding. I really appreciate the data. I can say in the Fiscal Affairs Advisory Commission, we've been pushing hard on this sort of performance measure data, and the county board has shown a lot of interest in it, and they included it in their budget guidance this year, which is huge. And the county manager's budget includes a lot more performance measures that are helpful from the budget side. You know, and we worked really hard in making the bike and drafting the bike element to include these things so that we would have an idea of how far along we are, and you know what our efforts are getting us. Not sure we're quite there with these performance measures and with this presentation yet, which I know is disappointing because I know some work went into this, but it's just sort of not clear that we're putting in the quality work that we're, you know, that we need to be able to say where we are. You know, like how far along are we in adopting the bike element? It's hard to know with this.
I think that
I mean,
Dana's comment in the chat makes sense, that it would be, I mean, this is not Elwyn's data, this is someone else's data, and it would be great to have, you know, those who put together this data and these slides, like have them come to the BAC and tell us, you know, talk it through with us. I mean, that's been one of our issues sort of as the BAC over the years, that what's so helpful is to have these discussions of like work in progress. How can we, you know, how can we assist? What are people's thoughts? And we don't need, you know, presentations that are final. We don't even need PowerPoints often, but just the opportunity to, you know, look at you know, talk with actually the people who are making this data and you know, see where they're at and how we could contribute. So see if you can lure them to join us.
Yeah, I really appreciate that feedback. I definitely invite Brian to a future meeting, perhaps, just to, you know, give some more background as to where this data is coming from. This has definitely been a labor of love across departments. So a lot of this kind of just, you know, plugins from one department to another. And so this is basically like having all this data in one place. But it'd definitely be helpful to hear how he's been hearing these over the past few weeks. And I would love to hear more from the committee to see if there's other performance metrics that we should be targeting, especially with the MTP being updated pretty soon. So that'd be an opportunity for the bike element to get much stronger in terms of implementation. Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Collier, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, just a quick request. As soon as we get these numbers cleaned up, these need to be prominently placed somewhere on the county website, and not just be buried in a as much as we love seeing you, but buried within a video of a BAC meeting. So as soon as we, as I said, get these cleaned up and presentable, they need to be shared, and so that people, the broader community can see these, the good and the bad. We just want to be transparent. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Collier. That's really good to know. In terms of, we've seen some similar systems around the country even from DC. They have like dashboards, they have like annual reporting that gets like actually formalized, that gets posted and shared. Yeah, it's definitely important to be as transparent as possible.
Dana, did you have a comment?
Yeah, well, to Jillian's point about the implementation plan, at a minimum, what there needs to be is behind every slide there needs to be one or two pages of explanatory notes of how is how you pulled the rabbit from the hat. Because short of that, I'm a big fan of footnotes. But short of that, they're just numbers that that quite honestly appear to have been extracted from somebody's rump. And once one of the numbers in the PowerPoint presentation is challenged, then all the other numbers become suspect. And it's a whole lot harder to get out of that hole than to avoid stepping in it. Thank you.
And just to be clear, I don't think these did come out of someone's rump. I think someone worked hard to get some numbers. It's just you have to write down like where they came from so that A, the public trusts what they are, and then B, the next person can come around and produce comparable numbers so that you're not in the situation that APS is, writing down some percentages that are lower than 20 that we don't even know what they correspond to.
All right. So to be continued? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. We're a little bit behind, but we're gonna catch up. Then next, our agenda scheduled for 8:15 is BAC membership, and I'm just going to say we need more members. We'd love to have more members, and for the longest time, I've been wanting to make it official that some of you who come every month and are very engaged, y'all should be members. And I'm not quite sure how we can sort of move things along in Arlington County, but that is the goal. In terms of numbers, we have officially 10 members now, and at least 9 of us are active members. Our draft charter is back in the county's hands at this point. The last version I saw said that the committee would be between 7 and 15 members, so we're in the ballpark. but I would love to have more of you as members, and I don't know what the easiest way to do this is, but if you are possibly interested in being a member, maybe send an email to me or to Elwin, and we can also write to you, and I can keep pushing that we get these memberships through the system. And I see that Steve has his hand up. Go for it, Steve.
Yeah, thanks. I'm totally on the, supportive of trying to bring more people into membership. And there's also been this issue of, do we have a diverse membership in our BAC? And sometimes we feel like maybe that's not as diverse as it ought to be. I do wonder, where does the responsibility between we as the committee itself and the county, and the county manager and his staff, where does the responsibility lie in recruiting new members? Because if we're seeking a broad membership across the whole county, we can only do so much. We know who we know, and we have some sort of amount, but we can't do like broad scale advertising and PR and marketing, whatever it takes to reach into all the communities necessarily. So that is, I think, a question. I would love to see a more diverse membership. I'd love to see a lot more people interested in being members, but I'm not sure what the best strategy for moving forward on that is, and the role that we have as the committee itself and the role that the county needs to play.
Thank you. All good issues, all important points, and we have been raising those very issues with Valerie Mosley and others as we work on multiple iterations of the BAC charter. And Dana, did you have something to add?
No, I'm fooling with my technology.
Okay. All right.
I'm on my third computer right now.
Oh my. All righty. And the other issue related to membership is that we no longer have a vice chair. And if anybody is interested, please let me or Elwin know, and then we can move that process along. But given that we're kind of behind time, I'd suggest we move right along to the next item on the agenda, which is the Shirlington Road Bridge update.
Yeah, thanks, Cynthia. So this next topic is basically including two subtopics. We have the new ped bridge that's going to be under construction shortly. We also want to reserve some time for folks to talk about the crossing for the 4-mile run trail across Arlington Road. So just for a quick update on this project. Not sure if you guys have seen this bridge. It's been approved and it's going to be under construction soon. So I stare at maps all day, so this makes a lot of sense to me, but it might be hard for folks to understand. So this is facing, the top is facing west. So this Shirlington Road is right here. You have our South Arlington Mill Drive over here, the 395 off ramp. So the proposed bridge will be built along the west to the west of the existing bridge, which will be connecting the trail along South Arlington Mill Drive to the new Jenny Dean Park. There's an entrance landing that's here. So the new bridge will be 15 feet wide, which will accommodate both people walking and biking and rolling across the bridge. So for the next few months over the summer, There's anticipated closures to basically have the footbridges be installed before the new bridge goes in. So the bridge is being built, assembled in one piece off-site, and then at a certain point it'll get basically dropped into place to link up with these two abutments on both sides of the former run. So it's anticipated that this area will be blocked off for folks trying to get to the north side of South Arlington Mill Drive, which is where the trail is. So this MOT will basically have directing folks to either use this crosswalk to get across to head west, or if folks are heading north up Shirlington Road, to direct folks around the intersection to avoid the construction detour. I believe this will be open on the weekends, but from between Monday and Friday, between 9 and 4 p.m., this whole area will be construction for the next few months. Okay. Hey, Steve, did you have a question?
Yes, actually, can you show that detour again?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm wondering if one thing that would be really useful to think about. So if I follow the detour from the west, so they cross 4 Mile Run and they go alongside, and then when they cross the ramp, so they've turned left and crossed the ramp, then they have to cross Shirlington Road to get back to the sidewalk on the other side. What if they want to get on the trail? Wouldn't it be nice if they didn't have to cross back over Shirlington Road and then cross back over Shirlington Road again to get on the trail? Would there be a way to put up some of those temporary Jersey barriers along the, I guess it would be the east side of Shirlington Road, to allow people to walk on that side of the road, rather than having to do like a triple crossing, literally, of Shirlington Road to get to the trail?
So you mean like having Jersey barriers along the west side right here?
No, the east side. So see where it says pedestrian detour, that with the white border around it? Right there where that arrow was pointing, instead of them having to cross Shirlington Road, what if they were able to continue straight north and then get on the trail? Wouldn't that be much more convenient for anyone who wanted to get on the trail going towards the airport?
Yeah, it would be much more convenient for sure. In terms of having folks staying on one side of the roadway. I believe that they're not looking at doing this because I believe there's the slip lane that comes here to offload vehicles coming from the interstate. So I'm not sure if that was an option that they looked at, but I could probably get back to you.
Well, what I'm suggesting is, I believe there are 2 lanes of automobile traffic there. What if one were sacrificed to allow everyone else who's not in a car to be able to be more convenienced just during those open hours, right? Just during those hours between 9 and 4, then they could be moved out of the way or whatever it takes.
Yeah, I could definitely ask to see if that could be an option. I'm not sure if this detour is set in stone, but this has been circulated amongst the commissions. So I could probably ask to see if what they're looking into.
Okay, thanks.
I would also point out it's not just convenience. Like, crossing a road is when people are in danger. So reducing the number of times people have to cross a road is a way to reduce the amount of danger people are put in.
Yeah, I agree. And we're not just crossing the 3 legs, we're also crossing again to get across this slip lane for folks driving down
and crossing
southbound.
back over. Yeah. The other thing is just south of there, so where the arrow is, the same crossing as you keep going south. It looks like the paint is worn off of there. And I know we're going by this satellite image, and even I just double checked Google's Street View. So I'm not, this isn't the most up-to-date information, but it looks like just the crosswalk markings are missing. So the call out box pedestrian detour has like a white arrow. The north part, and it's pointing to a crosswalk. The north part of the crosswalk looks like it has lines, you know, zebra stripes painted on it. But the south part of that same crossing looks like the zebra stripes are gone.
Yeah, I would
Here's
say,
more up to date.
yeah.
Isn't that in Alexandria?
I don't think
Yeah,
so.
here's a more up-to-date aerial. This one's going off of Nearmap, which is the website that we use. This aerial is from 2 months ago, basically. And is this the crosswalk that you mentioned, Jillian?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's faded.
And I'm pretty sure that's not Alexandria because that's Charlington.
To be honest, I don't care if it's Alexandria or Arlington, just put the stripes on. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Anyway, yeah.
I can just see someone being hit there and then saying, well, it was Alexandria's fault. Yeah, I mean, come on.
Anyway, if you can provide the feedback that this is a great time to update the road marking.
Yeah, I mean, before you start to put people on these crosswalks, all in these places, make sure that the crosswalks are highly visible and that whatever dangers are being minimized. I mean, that should just be a very minimal starting point.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, with MOTs, like it's pretty standard to have these even if they're just temporary reflective markings, it's pretty standard to just have those part of the MOT process as part of the capital construction. So, yeah, I'm really glad you guys bring this up. I could definitely forward these to the project manager.
So when and for how long will people have to take this dangerous set of detours?
Yeah, the construction for the abutments on both sides of the run will start this month, and then they're expected to go on until the summer. But they didn't mention a specific timeline. It's anticipated that the new bridge will be installed this fall, or late summer, early fall. But you know, I'm not sure if that means that this portion of Arlington Mill Drive will be closed that long. I think this is just with consideration of the construction of these abutments for the bridge.
How many people use this route that we're talking about here, walking along parallel to 4 Mile Run and then trying to zigzag in here? Is that a common sidewalk that people are using?
Not sure.
You know, I mean, at least from a cyclist standpoint, pretty much any cyclist along Arlington Mill who's even come from the Barcroft Trail who wants to continue eastbound has to get through this intersection. It's not an insignificant number.
Right.
I can't speak for pedestrians, but
is it better to put signage up earlier where there's an earlier pedestrian bridge? That's like, you know, 2 blocks west or something.
You mean further down the run to the west?
Yeah.
The Oakland Street Bridge, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
over there.
I mean, why not?
I don't know how many people use it, but this is the route I would recommend someone take between Gunston and Wakefield, for what it's worth.
If you're going to the trailhead, that would be better. Maybe it's always better, but it definitely would be better in this situation. Would it be better to get you to 4 Mile Run trail? Probably.
Yeah, probably.
So at least there should be signage saying, you know, super dangerous junk going on ahead, use this bridge if you can.
Yeah, I'm not sure of specific numbers, but definitely every time I've been out there, when we're looking at the crossing, we did see a lot of folks using this bridge to get from the Arlington Mill Drive trail to the 4 Mile Run trail.
Yeah,
So basically,
if people
and, you
people
know,
know that there's there's 4 lanes of traffic they have to pass through in the detour, then encouraging them or forcing them, I mean, just shut down the whole damn sidewalk at that other pedestrian bridge. And
Well, I wouldn't do that because there's some people that will use it for other things.
oh, sure.
But I would mark the detour the whole way through the park. Because I don't think it's obvious. I mean, you know, some people have a better sense of direction than others, but I think people on those paths through the park might get turned around. But it's a good point. I also don't know what happens. I'm just looking at satellite view. Does the path go all the way to Arlington Road? Or does it
Yeah,
dump
that
people
crosswalk.
out in the... Okay. Yeah, then that's a better detour.
And that was all redone. I mean, that's all fairly new.
yeah, I believe the sidewalk is about 7 feet wide, but it's back to the back of curb, so it's not safe for folks walking directly next to, you know, cars driving southbound.
Now I was referring to the sidewalk within Jimmy Dean Park area there.
Oh, okay.
From the earlier pedestrian bridge to get people more safely over to 4 Mile Run trail.
Why, going back to the detour, why isn't it crossing on the west side of whatever that intersection is, Arlington Road and Arlington Mill Drive? Why does it go all the way to the west side of the intersection and then cross back?
Why is the detour going all the way to the intersection, you mean?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah, just paint a temporary crosswalk where you want the people to go.
Yeah.
You know, because the reality is, I'm looking at the Arlington map. The other side of that, yeah, the county line goes through the center, down the center line of the street. So everything on the downstream side is Alexandria.
So just a temporary crosswalk just outside of the construction zone. Make it 1 crossing instead of 3.
Yeah.
Which is what people are going to do anyway.
Yeah, hell, that's what I'd do.
By the way, over spring break, right by my brother's house, they were doing some road work and they put down these temporary curb ramps that looked awesome and were very stable, and it made me wonder why we don't use them more often.
I bet the reason that they don't want to do this shortcut we're talking about on across Arlington Mill is there's not a proper curb cut, so they'd have to grind some concrete or something to make it ADA compliant.
Or just use a temporary ramp.
Yeah, that's easier.
But I mean, it looks like they're rebuilding a bunch of concrete anyway, so it doesn't seem like it would be that much of an ask. But even if they can't, temporary ramp seems like the way to go.
Yeah.
And one other idea would be I'm trying to describe this. You know, if I'm coming eastbound on the sidewalk, right, of the Arlington Mill Trail, essentially, and now that's going to be closed in order to put the new bridge in. What if that right lane of westbound traffic were closed to cars, and then that could be reappropriated for the people on foot and wheels? I mean, when the southbound traffic on Shirlington, some of it continues straight to get, you know, into the circle and onto the highway, and some of it turns right onto Arlington Mill, but not that much. I mean, does it really require 2 lanes of traffic to turn right from Shirlington onto Arlington Mill? Or would 1 lane be sufficient and the other lane could then be used to allow people on foot and bikes to just continue the way they've always been doing it?
So I will say that in the graphic you put up, it did say something about lane closures as well. My guess is that they were thinking that this would be
Oh, they closed the
staging
lane
bridging.
also. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the westbound right lane will be closed.
I mean, I like what you're thinking, Steve. Like, I'm with you there, but I have a feeling they're going to need that space for equipment anyway.
But long term, I think they can get rid of it. Because that's not enough of a sidewalk over there anyway.
It just seems hard to believe that anybody could think that that pedestrian detour made sense.
This all relates to part 2 of this conversation, which is Shirlington Road and crossing Shirlington Road, which I still consider extremely unsafe. One of the worst crossings we have in the county. And all the children now crossing to go to the beautiful Jenny Dean Park. And it's on the premier Arlington Loop. It just seems like we've got to do better, and it's just really, really dangerous, in my opinion. And for the last 2 years, almost every month with Leah and with Alwyn, I'm a broken record asking that we have this conversation with staff, and it hasn't happened yet. But if others agree that we need to have a conversation on short and intermediate term fixes to get people safely across Shirlington Road, then we can keep pushing for it and try and get a meeting. I mean, Arlington officially, like, a study is underway to look at possibilities for long-term fixes. But what some of us are saying is that's great. That would be amazing to have a bridge or a tunnel, but we need something to make it safer in the interim, and particularly now that we have children crossing at the flashing beacon and such, which I consider actually worse than nothing. But all this deserves conversation is the main point. Do others agree with my sentiment, or is it only that I've had enough misfortune at that intersection and seen enough really bad incidents to feel like it needs attention?
that worse than the intersection of doom?
Is it worse? Um, that's a tough question. The intersection of doom was what got me into road safety back in 2012, and I had problems crossing it by foot even the other day with my kid, and we got very aggressively honked at by a driver. I mean, it still said walk, and it was a very unpleasant and scary experience, let's just say. And we were on foot, not even on bikes, which are much more detested in this town. So yeah, so that's not a great one either. I think they're both at the top of my list.
I think that the intersection of doom, you have a green walking person when cars are trying to turn into you. It is particularly hard to navigate. This one, you should have the right of way, but cars just don't ever give it to you and plow into you. But it's not really hard to navigate. You just assume the cars are not going to stop for you. And I know for me, I just tell my kids, you have to go up to the light at 4 Mile Run Drive to cross the WNOD. It's not great, and it's not what it should be, but it's not as intractable and difficult to explain to children as the intersection of doom.
The problem, Jillian, is that not everybody has you as their mom. I wish that all the children of Arlington had you as their mom. And it scares the hell out of me when I see the flashing beacon you know, on, and one car stops in one lane, but then there's two lanes in each direction, and another car that was in the back or somewhere else, like they whip through when they see an opening, and one car stopping is just not enough to protect a kid when there are two lanes. So I feel like the flashing beacon is a detriment, makes it far more dangerous, fools children into believing that actually the cars are stopping, particularly if one lane does. Um, and I would love to have a conversation with the county staff about other possibilities, either getting rid of that beacon or, I mean, we have a long list that I pulled up. We don't have time to go through it right now, but a brainstorming list from years ago. And I'd love to brainstorm with staff, but we just haven't had that opportunity.
And instead, we're building a bridge that we don't really need and that we questioned the wisdom of when it first came up. And now that you look at the MOT, it's possible that the BAC should have been more, strident about opposing that bridge.
Exactly. I don't see the point of that bridge at all, personally, because we have other walking bridges like right down the way.
And I agree with you on the yellow beacon. I don't cross there. I go up to the light.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have the CIP soon, and we'll know where. We all know what the solution is a bridge underneath, or not bridge, but just continue going under, and come up in Jenny Dean Park. So we'll know where staff is putting that in the CIP soon. I don't know whether it makes sense to have a conversation before the CIP or not.
Okay, well, I will keep pushing for a conversation with staff on short and intermediate term fixes, because whatever gets put into the CIP for the longer term, and I'd be thrilled if we had a bridge or something, but still, there's a lot of time between now and then, and I worry about this May and this June and you know, all the good weather that's coming, and all the children who will be trying to cross. And particularly if they have to cross twice, like you all are saying. All right, so it's way over time already. It's 9:14. Does anybody have BAC business and announcements? Okay, I don't see any hands. For our May meeting, we will have a discussion on maintenance of traffic, road detours at construction sites, and also the MUTCD, Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. We'll have a conversation about that. So it should be a really great meeting. We will hold it together with the Pedestrian Advisory Committee, since they are also eager to cover these topics. And I don't know which date we'll be holding it, hopefully on the BAC night, but we will see. All right, anybody else?
Hey, Cynthia?
Yeah.
Dana,
Yeah.
can I put a pitch in for, make that an actual in-person meeting in May?
We can certainly try.
Thank you.
And I know that last month's in-person took a lot of work. So Elwin, Mary, David, who's not here, maybe we can all talk offline and see if we can make it work to go in person next month. I think that would be great.
Yeah, for sure. We could talk offline about it.
Yeah, works for me.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. 9:16. Sorry we're over. Thanks everyone for sticking around. Have a good
Good night.
night.
Right. Have a good night,
Thanks all.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Great meeting.